The ship landed quietly in the forest outside a small human town. It was not big, only the size of a small house, but it carried something very unusual, a girl from the planet Kravala. Her name was Zayara, and she had been trained all her life to be a warrior, a future queen, and a mate who must survive the strongest test of her species. On her world, love was not soft or gentle. Mating meant a battle, and the female who survived became worthy of respect. But Earth was different. And Zayara was about to find out just how different it truly was. Zayara stepped out of the ship, her purple skin shining under Earth's sun. Her long white hair was tied in thick braids, and her armor was made from the bones of wild Kravalan beasts. She looked proud, powerful, and ready for war, but inside, her heart was unsure. This was the first time she had been sent to another planet alone. The Council on Kravala had warned her, "Be careful, human males may look soft, but they're lies." "Are deadly," Zayara nodded back then. But now she was not so sure. A human man named Jason stood waiting at the edge of the trees. He was chosen by the Galactic Union to host the alien guest. Jason was not a soldier or a scientist. He was a peaceful man who lived alone and loved nature. He raised animals, cooked food with strange spices, and smiled easily when he saw Zayara. He waved like they were old friends. Zayara frowned, confused by his casual behavior. On her world, first greetings were done with growls and weapon checks, not smiles. "You must be Zayara," Jason said, his voice warm. "Welcome to Earth." Zayara did not reply at first. Her sharp eyes studied him. No weapons, no armor, just a strange fabric over his body and soft shoes. Was this a trick? Was he hiding poison in his smile? "Where is your battle gear?" she asked, narrowing her eyes. Jason blinked. "I don't have any battle gear. I have pancakes." Zayara had no idea what that meant, but she followed him anyway. At his home, everything felt strange to her. There were soft chairs, warm lights, strange pictures of mountains on the walls. Jason showed her her room, a space with pillows, blankets, and small blinking lights on the ceiling. No chains. She asked, "No sleeping pit?" Jason laughed. "No, this is your room. You're free to go anywhere." That word "free" made Zayara pause. On Kravala, females were only free if they won the mating battle, and many never did. As night fell, Zayara sat on the edge of her bed, confused and alert. The room was too quiet, too soft, too peaceful. She reached for the hidden blade on her leg, just in case. Suddenly, she smelled something warm, rich, unfamiliar. Jason knocked on her door, holding a tray with a steaming dish. "Dinner," he said, smiling again. "I made roasted meat and mashed potatoes." Earth-style. Zayara's eyes widened. Her heart raced. Meat? Was this a signal? Was he preparing her last meal before the fight? She stood slowly, hands ready to strike. "You plan to feed me before the battle?" she asked coldly. Jason tilted his head. "Battle? No, no battle. Just food. Is this a trick?" She growled. "Do humans eat their females after mating season?" Jason dropped the spoon in surprise. "What? No. We. What did you just say?" Zayara stepped back, suddenly unsure. On her planet, that was normal. It was survival. It was expected. But now, Jason looked horrified, not dangerous. "I don't know what you've been told," Jason said slowly, "but humans don't do that. We don't eat anyone, especially not someone we love." Zayara sat back down, stunned. Love? That word felt foreign in her mouth, soft like a cloud. Back home, love was blood and scars, not smiles and roasted meat. That night, she lay awake, watching the stars from her window. Was this human telling the truth? Why was he kind? Why didn't he test her strength? Why did this world feel safe? As the moonlight touched her face, Ziara whispered to herself, "If he is not lying, then everything I know is wrong," and that thought, more than any battle she had faced, truly scared her. The next day would bring more surprises, but for now, Ziara closed her eyes and listened, not for danger, but for the quiet sound of peace. The house was too quiet. Ziara sat on the edge of her bed, gripping the small blade hidden under her pillow. Her sharp eyes moved from the blinking lights on the ceiling to the soft, glowing device on the wall that played slow, peaceful music. Nothing made sense in this place. There were no screams, no growls, no signs of dominance. Only warmth, softness, and silence. She hated it, and yet, she was curious, back on Kravala. The first night after arrival in a new place meant battle. Either the host would try to test you, or you were expected to attack first to show your strength. Here, Jason had done nothing. He just smiled, fed her, and said, "Good night, sleep well." Was it a trap? A test of patience? Ziara didn't know, and that made her even more nervous. A small creak came from the hallway. Ziara stood at once, silent and ready. Her body tense like a coiled spring, her blade steady in her hand. Footsteps, slow and careful, approached her. Door, her heart pounded in her chest, her instincts screaming. The door opened gently, and there stood Jason holding a soft folded object in his arms. "I thought you might be cold," he said. Placing the blanket on a nearby chair, Ziara blinked. Stunned, no weapon, no armor, no ambush, just a blanket. A gift of warmth. She looked at him with narrow eyes. "You came into my room with cloth." Jason chuckled softly. "Yeah, it's just a blanket. No need to fight me over it." He turned and walked away without another word. Ziara stood there frozen, the blade still in her hand, unsure what just happened. The rest of the night was long. She sat near the window, watching the moon rise slowly into the sky. She had read about Earth's moon, how it changed shape, how it pulled the oceans, but no one told her how beautiful it looked. Hanging silently in the darkness, back on Kravala, the nights were full of red storms and lightning. There was no peace, only noise and survival. Here, the only sound was the soft hum of machines and the quiet wind outside the window in the middle of the night. Her stomach made a strange sound, hunger. She hadn't eaten the food Jason gave her earlier, afraid it was poisoned, but now the smell returned to her memory. Warm and rich and strange, she slipped out of her room, barefoot, her blade still at her side, just in case. The hallway was dark, but not scary. Soft lights along the floor glowed like tiny stars. Showing her the way, she followed the scent to the kitchen, where she found something even more strange: Jason asleep at the table, his head resting on his arms, an open book beside him. Ziara crept closer, watching him breathe, so calm, so unafraid, so weak. Or was it something else? On her world, no male would sleep unguarded with a female nearby. But Jason had not locked his door, had not watched her from the shadows. He had simply trusted her. On the table was a covered plate, still warm, with a note that said, "In case you get hungry." Ziara stared at the words for a long time, then slowly removed the cover. The meat was still good. The mashed white food beside it soft and strange. She took one bite, then another. Her eyes widened, flavor, warmth, and no pain. She looked down at Jason again, this time with something new in her chest. Confusion, maybe, or curiosity, or something deeper she did not yet understand. As she returned to her room, full and no longer scared, she thought about everything. Why was he being kind? What did he want? And why did his face, resting peacefully on the table, not look like a killer, but like a friend? She lay back down on the bed, finally pulling the blanket over herself. It was warm, soft, almost like being wrapped in safety. Her blade still rested near her hand, but for the first time in her life. She didn't grip it tightly. Sleep came. Slowly, but it came. Not the sharp sleep of a warrior ready to strike, but the deep sleep of someone who had felt, even for a moment, safe in the morning. Jason would cook again. He would ask about her sleep, offer strange earth drinks like orange juice, and talk about the weather. And Zyara would sit there, quiet but watching, trying to understand. Because something inside her had started to change. She didn't know what it was, but it felt human, and that scared her more than any blade ever could. Zyara stood at the edge of the open space, her arms crossed, her eyes scanning the strange scene in front of her. Colorful lights flashed above. Music thumped through the air, and human males and females moved their bodies together, some laughing, some touching, and some even pressing their mouths together in public. Her warrior brain could not understand it. Where were the claws, the trials, the blood? How were these people deciding who was strong enough to mate? Jason had invited her out, saying, "Let's go relax, have some fun, meet people." Fun, he said, as if entering a crowded place full of strangers was something to enjoy. Zyara followed, out of curiosity, but now that she was here, she didn't understand anything she saw. She leaned close to Jason and whispered, "Why are they touching each other without permission from the leader?" Jason laughed gently. "There's no leader here, Zyara. Everyone's just enjoying themselves." That made no sense in her culture. Affection came only after survival. Even basic closeness was earned in combat or testing, and here, a female leaned her head on a male's shoulder while giggling at something he said. Another male fed a female a bite of food from a stick, and she smiled instead of biting off his hand. Zyara felt dizzy from the softness of it all. "Are these bonding trials?" she asked slowly. Jason looked at her, confused. "You mean like dating?" "I guess so. Is that the word for choosing mates?" she asked. Narrowing her eyes, Jason nodded. "Sort of. Yeah, it's when two people get to know each other and see if they connect." Zyara shook her head, but there is no battle, no test of muscle, no challenge. How do they know who is worthy? Jason chuckled. "We don't prove love through pain, Zyara. We prove it through time and kindness." Zyara turned her eyes back to the dance floor. A female danced, with her arms in the air, while a male tried to copy her moves. Both of them laughed and stumbled. Not angry, not ashamed, just happy. She watched a group of friends hugging, touching shoulders, showing open affection. No scars, no growls, no armor, just emotion. It was terrifying, and yet something deep inside her stirred. She noticed how Jason looked at her, not with the hunger of a fighter ready to strike, but with calm, gentle interest, like he wanted to hear her speak, to know her thoughts. He had brought her here not to test her, but to include her. He offered her a drink in a small glowing glass. "Try this. It's sweet." She sniffed it like a scout checking for poison, then took a sip. Sweet, fizzy. Cold. It was a shock to her senses. She didn't hate it on Kravala. "Males fight in the arena to earn a female's interest," she said suddenly, watching him. Jason raised his eyebrows. "And if they lose, they die." She replied without emotion. "If they win, the female fights next, to see if she is strong enough to be the mother of future warriors." Jason's face turned pale. "That's intense." Zyara nodded. "Our bond is written in blood. Your bond is written in sugar water." Jason laughed loudly, causing nearby humans to look at them. Zyara felt her face warm. Sure if she had said something wrong, but Jason simply shook his head. "I like your way of explaining things." He reached out his hand slowly. "Palm up. Come dance with me." Zyara stared at his hand like it was a weapon. "Is this a challenge?" she asked. "No," Jason said with a smile. "It's a moment. Just a moment to share." She hesitated. But something inside her moved some new feeling she didn't have a name for. She placed her hand in his, shocked by the warmth of his touch. No shock, no test, no pull of dominance, only peace. Jason led her to the center of the dance floor, where the lights spun and the music grew softer. He moved gently, not like a warrior, but like someone enjoying the wind. Zyara followed his lead, awkward at first, but slowly letting herself relax. For the first time, she moved without thinking of defense or attack, and when Jason laughed again, she found herself smiling too. The music slowed down, and Jason leaned closer. Zyara felt her heart beat faster, but not in fear. "Thank you for trusting me," he said quietly. Zyara didn't know what to say. She had never thanked someone for not hurting her before. This was all new, all strange, and all confusing. Later that night, back at the house, Zyara sat on the floor, staring at her hands. They had touched another being without violence. And in that moment, she hadn't felt weak. She had felt seen. "Jason," she called softly. He looked up from the couch. "Yeah. Human rituals are strange," she said slowly. "But they are not bad." Jason smiled. "You're strange too, Zyara, but not bad." And somehow, that made her heart feel warm again. The room was quiet, lit only by the soft blue light of the communication screen. Zyara sat alone at the edge of her bed, her fingers shaking slightly as she touched the blinking button. The seal of the Krevalin High Council appeared, followed by the sharp voice of the elder matron. "Agent Zyara, status report overdue. We demand an update." Zyara hesitated, her eyes drifting toward the hallway where Jason was humming to himself in the kitchen. He was cooking again, singing something about bacon and eggs. He had no idea. She was being watched, measured, judged by her people far away. Zyara took a breath and replied, "I have made contact with a human male named Jason. He shows no signs of violence, deception, or control. It's very different from what we expected." The voice on the other side paused, then responded coldly. "Different is not safe. You must initiate the Krevalin trial of mating within 2 cycles. You must test the male's strength and confirm his role as dominant. Failure to do so will result in removal and reassignment." Zyara stared at the screen, her jaw clenched. She had not told them everything. She had not mentioned the way Jason laughed when she made serious comments, or the way he always checked if she was comfortable. She had not told them how he once offered her a blanket when she shivered instead of using it as a way to weaken her. Most of all, she had not told them how she no longer feared him, because she didn't, and that confused her more than anything. "I need more time," she whispered. "No." The voice said firmly, "Krevalin tradition is not built on time. It is built on proof. Test the male, Zyara, or return home in shame." The screen blinked off before she could argue. She sat there, frozen, her thoughts spinning. Test the male. That meant she had to challenge him to fight, to force, to dominate. But how could she do that when Jason had never once tried to harm her? On Krevala, she would be seen as weak for even asking such a question. But on Earth, weakness looked very different. Later that night, Jason knocked on her door again. She quickly wiped her face and turned to him, her mask of strength returning. "Hey," he said softly, "everything okay?" "You were quiet during dinner." Zyara nodded. "I was thinking, that is all." Jason smiled. "Well, if you need someone to talk to, I'm here." He walked away again, giving her space. Giving her space. That, too, was strange. Zyara stood in front of the mirror in her room, staring at herself. Her eyes, once full of fire, now looked unsure. She opened a small case and pulled out a silver band, the ceremonial binding blade of her people. It wasn't meant to kill, just to draw blood, enough to start the trial, once used. The ritual could not be undone. She had to either claim the male or defeat him, She stared at the blade for a long time. Was she really going to test him? Would she really point a weapon at someone who had done nothing but offer her peace? And yet, she didn't. The council would call her a failure. They might even send another, less kind, replacement. Jason could be in danger. And he didn't even know it. The next morning, Ziara sat at the table while Jason poured her tea. His hand brushed against hers, warm and gentle. She looked into his eyes. And the words came out before she could stop them. "My people want me to test you." Jason blinked. "Test me." Like a quiz. Ziara shook her head slowly. "No. Like? Fight, to prove if you are worthy, if you are strong enough to be my mate." Jason leaned back. Shocked but not angry, he looked at her. Not with fear, but with deep understanding. "Do you want to do that?" he asked. "Or are you being forced?" Ziara looked down, her voice soft. "I don't know. I only know that if I don't, they'll think I've gone soft." Jason reached across the table and gently took her hand. "You haven't gone soft," he said. "You've just seen another." Ziara didn't speak for a long moment. Then, with trembling hands, she placed the ceremonial blade on the table between them. "If I start this, I cannot stop, but I don't want to hurt you, Jason. Not for a tradition I'm no longer sure I believe in." Jason looked at the blade, then at her. "I won't fight you," he said softly, "but I'll stand with you. However you choose." Tears burned at the corners of Ziara's eyes. But she held them back, not because she was ashamed, but because for the first time in her life, she wasn't being tested. She was being trusted, and that was the strongest feeling of all. The wind outside was quiet, but inside the house, Ziara's heart was loud. She stood in front of Jason's door, wearing the armor of her ancestors. Dark silver plates wrapped around her arms and shoulders, glowing softly with old Kravalan symbols. At her side was the ceremonial blade, still sheathed, but pulsing with energy. This was it, the moment her people expected the mating challenge. The final test of a human male's strength. She raised her hand to knock, but paused. This didn't feel right. Jason wasn't a warrior. He wasn't preparing for a duel. He was in the kitchen, probably making toast, humming a strange earth song without worry. He had no idea what the armor meant, or what the blade stood for. And yet, Ziara couldn't walk away, not with her people watching. A small red light blinked in the corner of her arm. The recorder was on, sending everything back to Kravala. Live. They were waiting to see blood, to see her dominance, but Ziara was full of doubt. Finally, she knocked, loud and hard. Jason opened the door with a big smile, but it faded quickly. His eyes moved over the armor. The blade, the fire in Ziara's eyes. He stepped back, raising his hand slowly. "What's going on?" Ziara stepped inside, her voice steady but quiet. "I must begin the trial of strength. My people are watching. If I do not complete this challenge, they will send others, and those others will not be kind like me." Jason looked at her carefully. Reading her expression, "You don't want to do this," he said, not as a question, but as a fact. Ziara didn't answer, because he was right. Still, she drew the blade, turning it in her hand. The metal sang as it left the sheath, the glow. Rising around it, she held it low, not in attack position yet. Jason didn't flinch, didn't run, didn't fight. Instead, he slowly stepped closer and said something that made her breath catch. "Then strike me, Ziara, if you must. But I won't raise a hand against you." Ziara stared at him, the blade trembling in her grip. On Kravala, this would be seen as weakness. A male who didn't fight back wasn't worth anything. But looking into Jason's calm eyes, she didn't see weakness. She saw courage, real courage, the kind that chooses peace. Even when threatened, her hand lowered. Just a little. Jason stepped forward again, slowly. "What do you really want, Ziara?" She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. Her heart was full of noise, memories of blood, of battle, of rules she never questioned before. But now, she had seen a new way. She had tasted earth food, danced without fear, laughed. At small jokes, she had shared silence with someone who never wanted to hurt her, only understand her. And now, this human was standing still, offering himself to her without armor, without a shield. That was the strongest move she had ever seen. She dropped the blade to the ground, and the hum stopped. The red recording light on her armor turned off. Gasps would echo back on Kravala. The elders would rage, but Zyara no longer cared. "I don't want to hurt you," she said. Her voice soft but full of power. "I don't want to prove I can break you. I want to prove I can stand beside you." Jason smiled, gently picking up the blade and placing it on the table. "I've always known you were strong," he said. "But now you've shown me something even greater. You've shown me you can choose your own path." Zyara let out a long breath and pulled off her shoulder armor, letting it fall to the ground with a heavy thud. Then the chest piece, then the leg guards, until she stood in her soft underlayer. No longer a warrior, just a person. She felt lighter than ever before, not just because the armor was gone, but because the weight of expectations had fallen to Jason. Reached out and took her hand. For the first time, Zyara didn't flinch at his touch. She didn't question it or fear it. She accepted it, warm and steady. "What now?" Jason asked, still holding her hand. Zyara looked around the room, now feeling different. Like a battlefield, but like a home. She smiled, small but real. "Now we eat," she said, laughing gently. "And then I teach my people that not every bond must be written in blood." The morning sunlight slipped through the window. Warm and soft, Zyara sat on the living room floor, her legs crossed, armor gone. Ceremonial blade resting quietly in a wooden box beside her. Jason brought her a hot drink called tea, steam rising in curls from the cup. She held it carefully, watching the way the warmth moved through the liquid. So strange, so peaceful. Yet it felt more powerful than any weapon she had ever held. Jason sat down across from her, placing a plate of toast and fruit between them. He didn't speak at first, giving her space, just like always. Zyara finally broke the silence, her voice softer than usual. "Why do you do this?" she asked. "Why? Are you always kind, even when I was ready to hurt you?" Jason looked surprised by the question, but not confused. He nodded slowly, choosing his words with care, because that's what love is. "Zyara, it's not about fear or control. It's about making someone feel safe, seen, and wanted. It's not weakness to care about someone, it's strength in another form." Zyara stared into her tea, thinking, no one ever told me love was safety, she whispered. "On my planet, love is pain. Love is power. To love means to survive the other person and be stronger after." Jason smiled gently. "And here, love means to hold each other and grow stronger together." She looked up, her eyes shining. "I don't understand this kind of love, Jason. I was trained to fight it, not feel it." Jason leaned forward a little, his voice low and calm. "You don't have to understand it all at once. You're already learning just by being here, by asking, by feeling." Zyara nodded slowly, taking a bite of the fruit, sweet, soft, and alive with flavor. Much like these moments she was now living, every day on Earth felt like a new taste. A new color, a new truth, one that her home had hidden from her. Jason reached for a small device on the table and tapped a button. Soft music filled the room, not loud or wild like the dance place, but gentle, slow, like a heartbeat. Zyara tilted her head. "What is this?" "Love song," Jason said with a smile. She listened carefully to the words. A human voice singing about missing someone's eyes, about wanting nothing more than to hold a hand. No mention of combat, No mention of victory, only emotion, connection, and desire. It made her chest feel strange. Tight and full at the same time. Is this how you choose a mate? She asked, with songs and smiles. Sometimes, Jason replied. Sometimes it's just a look, a word, a moment, no battles. Jason chuckled, only the kind that happen inside your heart. Ziara sat quietly, letting the music wash over her. Then, in a soft voice, she asked, "And? What happens after? If a human falls in love, what comes next?" Jason thought for a moment, then answered, "They stay, they care. They protect each other. They share life together, one day at a time." Ziara lowered her eyes, her voice trembling slightly. "Jason, I don't know if I can give you love the way your people do. I don't know if I can smile all the time, or say soft words, or be gentle like you." Jason reached out slowly, taking her hand in his. "You don't have to be like me, Ziara. You just have to be you. That's more than enough." Tears touched the corners of her eyes, unexpected and hot. She had never cried without pain before, never cried just from feeling safe. "I thought love was something you win by being stronger," she whispered. "But maybe it's something you build by being open." Jason smiled. "Now you're teaching me something too." They sat there for a long time, holding hands, saying nothing more, and in that silence, Ziara felt something awaken inside her. Not fear, not duty, but a deep calm, like she had finally stopped running. She stood up slowly, then turned to Jason with a small, honest smile. "Would you like to walk with me?" she asked, not as part of a test, just because I want to. Jason nodded, standing up beside her. "I'd like that," he said warmly. They stepped out into the sun together. Side by side, no armor, no weapons, just two people learning something ancient in a new way and far away. The stars watched quietly, for in the vast silence of space, a warrior girl from a world of violence was slowly discovering the gentlest form of strength, love. The stars above Earth were quiet that night, but on Kravala, the war drums were already shaking the towers. In the great hall of the High Council, the elders watched the final report from Agent Ziara. Her face appeared on the screen, calm and strong, but without armor. She spoke clearly, her voice steady, her words like thunder in a room full of silence. "I refuse the mating trial. The human male, Jason, did not fight, did not dominate. He offered me peace, and I accepted it. I do not return with blood, but with understanding, and I no longer believe that love must be earned through pain." The room exploded into noise. Warriors shouted, elders slammed their fists on the long stone table. "She is corrupted." One growled, "She has lost the Kravalan way." Another hissed, but others, especially younger council members, stayed silent, their eyes wide, because deep inside, some of them were curious, even hopeful. Back on Earth, Ziara sat beside Jason in the garden behind his home. The night breeze moved gently through the trees, and the stars above blinked like quiet listeners. She had just sent her message 10 minutes ago, and already her hands were shaking. "What if they send someone to bring me back by force?" she whispered. Jason placed a hand on hers, calm and steady. "Then I'll stand with you. Whatever comes." Ziara looked up at the stars, her voice low. "My whole life, I believed that only through violence could we prove love. I believed pain was the key to loyalty, but now I felt something different, something real. And I will not go back to chains dressed as tradition." Suddenly, a soft chime came from her wrist device. An incoming message. Ziara tapped it, and a hologram appeared. It was her younger sister, Raylene, still in her training armor. "Ziara," Raylene said, eyes wide with disbelief. "They're angry, but they're listening. Others are watching your report again and again. Especially the females. You did something no one expected. You lived through a bond without spilling blood. Zyara smiled softly. That wasn't survival, Relen. That was something stronger. That was love. Relen paused, her voice shaking. Do you think there's a chance for us to have that too? Zyara looked at Jason, who smiled back, then returned her gaze to the hologram. Yes, she said firmly, but only if you're brave enough to ask for it, not take it. Only if you're strong enough to choose peace when violence feels easier. The message ended, and silence returned to the garden. But it was a peaceful silence, not the kind that comes before war. It was the kind that followed change, soft but unstoppable, the next morning. The skies above Earth shimmered as a small transport ship landed quietly on the edge of the forest. Zyara and Jason stood at the edge of the field. Watching as the ramp lowered, a single figure stepped out, young, tall, armored, but with her helmet in her hands. It was Relen, and behind her, more Kravalan females followed, their eyes sharp but curious. Zyara stepped forward, her voice proud and sure. "Welcome to Earth," she said, "where love does not need blood, only choice." Jason walked up beside her and nodded at the new arrivals. "You're safe here," he said. "If you want to learn, we'll teach. If you want peace, we'll share it." One of the older Kravalan warriors stepped forward, her voice gruff. "And if we want to test this human way?" Zyara smiled, "Then start by sitting down for breakfast. It's the first test of Earth's trust." The warriors looked at each other, unsure. But then, one by one, they lowered their weapons and followed Zyara toward the house, not to battle, but to something far more dangerous, to old beliefs change. Inside, Jason set out extra plates. Zyara poured tea, and Relen examined a fork like it was a puzzle. They laughed, asked questions. And for the first time in history, Kravalan females broke bread instead of bones across the stars. Word began to spread of a human male who won a warrior's heart without lifting a blade. Of a warrior who taught her people that love could be chosen, not earned, through scars. And so it began, not with a war, but with a smile, a meal, and a new way to see strength, because in a galaxy full of fear and fire, one girl had chosen love, and that was the boldest act of all.